My husband roared he would take all my property in the divorce if I went to a lawyer. Divorce? I will take every last cent from you, scary, lazy fat woman. So, I turned to a lawyer, laying out my main trump card. She smiled. At 27, my life took a wild turn. My dad, who had bailed on us years ago, after cheating on mom, kicked the bucket and left me everything he had. It was a weird mix of feelings. I was sad about losing him, but let's be honest, we weren't close. And then, there was this whole becoming rich overnight thing. I inherited a bunch of shares in a famous company. It was like out of nowhere, I could actually think about doing anything I wanted. Mom was on edge about it though. One evening, as we sat in our old kitchen, she said, "Be careful, Olivia. Now that you're loaded, you'll see how many leeches come sniffing around." I just laughed it off. "Mom, come on. I can handle a few gold diggers." Then I met Mark. He was just a regular clerk at the property agency, where I was trying to untangle the mess of inheriting Dad's estate. The place was always packed, but Mark stood out with his straightforward charm and an easy smile that seemed to simplify everything. "Looks like you've got quite the stack there. Need a hand?" he offered, pointing at my pile of papers. "Would love some help, thanks. Feels like I'm drowning in paperwork," I admitted. As he sifted through the forms, he kept the conversation light. "So, inheriting a fortune, huh? Bet that's a lot to take in. You have no idea. It's a lot all at once," I said, feeling a bit more at ease. We ended up chatting more each time I was there. It wasn't just about the will or the shares, we connected over simple things, like our favorite movies and where we liked to hang out on weekends. He was easygoing and had this knack for making me laugh when I least expected it. After a few weeks, he asked me out. Just casual drinks at a dive bar, we both liked. "So, how about we take this discussion outside of these boring walls? Grab a beer with me?" he suggested with a grin. I agreed without hesitation. It felt right. Our dates turned into something more serious pretty quickly, and before I knew it, we were talking about a future together. One lazy evening, while we were sharing a pizza at my place, he turned to me and said, "Liv, I've been thinking. Why don't we make this official? Marry me?" His proposal was just like him, no dramatics, just straight to the point. I almost choked on my slice from laughing so hard. Then I said, "Yeah, why not?" Planning the wedding was straightforward. We wanted something simple, something that felt true to who we were. We talked about what we loved, finding out we both preferred a small ceremony with just close friends and family around. As we planned our life together, we realized how much we had in common. We both dreamt of starting our own business, using my inheritance as a stepping stone. Mark was full of ideas, always sketching out plans on napkins or the back of receipts. "Think about it, Liv. We could build something great, something just ours," he'd say, his eyes lighting up with every new idea. "Yeah, I love that. Building our future together," I'd reply, equally caught up in the excitement. We spent nights talking about the possibilities, from the type of business we could start to the places we might travel. Our life was laid out before us, a map of dreams and shared ambitions. Before we got married, he suggested we should use the inheritance from my dad, those shares I got, to kickstart our own thing. It felt right, you know? Building something from scratch together. I was all in, but I figured I should run it by Mom first. I remember sitting in her old, cozy kitchen, the one with yellow wallpaper that's seen better days. I spilled the beans about using the inheritance as startup capital. Mom's face got all serious, like it does when she's about to drop some heavy advice. "Olivia, you gotta protect yourself. Get a prenup," she insisted, stirring her coffee, slowly. "Make sure it says if one of you cheats and bails, they lose their share in the business." I frowned, kinda taken aback. "Mom, why bring up cheating? I trust Mark. We're not gonna screw each other over." She sighed, the sound heavy with old hurts. "I'm just saying, Olivia, because of what your father did to me. It's not about trust, it's about being smart." I felt a sting at that, realizing maybe she had a point. I didn't want to think about it, but arguing felt wrong. "Sorry, Mom. I guess you're right," I murmured, feeling that knot in my gut loosen a bit. When I told Mark about the prenup, he wasn't thrilled. At first, he just went quiet, and I could tell he was mulling it over. "A prenup, Liv? Really?" he finally said, his voice a mix of surprise and a bit of hurt. "Yeah, it's just, my mom suggested it. It's like insurance, you know? Not that I think we'll ever need it." I rushed to explain, watching his reaction closely. He took a deep breath, ran his fingers through his hair, and then looked me straight in the eyes. "I love you, Liv. You're the most important person in my world. If this makes you feel secure, then I'm on board. Let's do it your way." Hearing him say that, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. We got the prenup sorted, making sure it was fair but firm on the terms. And after that, there was a modest and dignified wedding ceremony, exactly the kind I dreamed of. We went ahead and sold those shares, and the money that came in was more than enough to get our dream off the ground. Mark's eyes practically lit up when we saw the figures. "This is it, Liv, we're gonna make it big," he said, his excitement infectious. We poured everything into setting up our business. It was going to be a wholesale warehouse for medical equipment. Neither of us had any real experience in it, but Mark was great with people and I had a head for numbers. It seemed like the perfect match. "We'll start small, grow fast, keep overheads low and expand when we can afford it," Mark planned out loud as we toured potential warehouse spots. "Sounds like a plan." I agreed, already picturing the busy warehouse, the orders flying in, our future unfolding. Our wholesale medical equipment business started picking up speed faster than we anticipated. The demand was high, and suddenly, we were swamped. It was a good problem to have, but it was still a problem. "Mark, we need to hire more help. It's just us, and we can't keep up," I said one evening, my voice drowning in a sea of paperwork on our dining table. Mark, his face buried in his laptop, barely looked up. "We can manage a bit longer. Hiring means spending, living. Let's just push through this." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Push through? Look at us, Mark. We're burning out. This isn't sustainable." He shot me a look, a mix of frustration and fatigue. "All right, let's look into it, but we keep it tight. Maybe 1 or 2 part-timers." Agreeing on that was a relief, but it was just the start of our growing pains. With new staff came new responsibilities, training, payroll, and management stuff that neither of us had much clue about. I took it upon myself to learn on the fly. I signed up for a couple of online courses on business management and accounting. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. "Hey, I found this online course on accounting, thought it might help with the books," I told Mark one night as we were locking up the warehouse. He nodded, looking genuinely relieved. "That's great, Liv. I've been worried about keeping up with all that." But as the business grew, so did the tension between us. We were both stressed, and it started to show. Mark was out networking and securing deals while I was back at the warehouse, keeping everything running. It felt like we were living separate lives. One particularly rough day, I snapped, "You're always out there, schmoozing and having a grand old time, while I'm stuck here sorting out mess after mess." Mark's face hardened. "Schmoozing? You think I enjoy this? This is for us, for the business, Liv. It doesn't feel like us anymore, Mark. It feels like you and me, separately." I shot back, my voice cracking a bit from the stress. We both cooled down eventually, but it was clear we needed to make some changes. We decided to start scheduling regular meetings to sync up, discuss what was happening on both sides of the business, and just reconnect as a couple, not just business partners. "Let's try to not talk shop during dinner, okay? Just us, no business talk," Mark suggested during one of our first attempts to balance work and life. I agreed, more than ready to find some normalcy again. "Deal. And maybe we can actually take a day off together soon? Like a real day off?" As we implemented these small changes, things started to improve. The business was still demanding, but managing our roles and stress became a bit easier. It was a learning curve, dealing with the growth of our business and the strains it put on us. As our business grew, so did the workload. I was buried in the day-to-day operations, managing everything from inventory to customer complaints. It was non-stop, and all that stress, coupled with too many quick meals eaten at my desk, meant I started putting on weight. My once casual jeans became a struggle to zip up, and I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror. It wasn't just the physical changes, I felt myself wearing down, losing that spark I used to have. Mark, on the other hand, spent his days schmoozing with trading partners. It was all about networking for him, building relationships that would benefit our business. But as he threw himself more and more into that part of the job, I felt him drifting away. He started coming home late, his reasons vague, his explanations hurried. Just had to wrap up with a client. Or, got caught up at the office. He'd say, it was happening too often and it didn't sit right with me. One evening, with the party of one of our biggest suppliers just around the corner, Mark dropped a bombshell that left me reeling. We were in our kitchen, me trying to decide if I should even bother trying on another dress that I knew would be too tight, when he came out with it. "Liv, you're not coming to the party," he declared, not even bothering to look up from his phone. I froze, a dress in my hands. "Excuse me? Why the HLL not?" He finally looked up, his expression cold and detached. "Look, the people there, they have a certain image. You don't fit it anymore, Liv." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've let yourself go, Liv. You don't look the part, and I can't have you standing next to me tonight. It's bad for business," he said bluntly, as if he was talking about a faulty piece of equipment rather than his wife. I threw the dress down, my whole body shaking with anger and hurt. "So, I'm just an embarrassment to you now? Is that it?" He shrugged, his indifference like a slap in the face. "I'm thinking about the business. That's what you should be doing, instead of getting upset over a party." The word stung, and I could feel tears prickling at the back of my eyes, but I fought them back. "You go to your precious party, Mark. Don't worry about me. He left without another word, and I spent the night alone, the silence of the house echoing around me, like a mockery. The more I thought about it, the more it hurt. Was this what our marriage had come to? Was the business all he cared about now? When he came back, it was late. I was sitting in the living room, the lights off, just waiting. I needed to understand why he thought it was okay to treat me like this. How was the party? I asked, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. It was fine, got some promising leads. He replied casually, as if nothing had happened. That's good, I said, keeping my voice calm. And was it worth it? Making your wife feel like garbage? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, Liv, this is how these things work. You wouldn't understand. It's all about appearances. Appearances, right? I said, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. So, our marriage is just another business deal to you now? He didn't answer, just mumbled something about being tired and headed to bed. The fallout from that dreadful party night seemed to linger around the house like a thick fog, choking out any warmth we had left. Quarrels with Mark became the new norm. He started picking at everything about me, my weight, my few wrinkles, even how I dressed. Are you going to wear that old thing again? He'd sneer, or, guess we're not the young couple we used to be, huh? Huh? I tried to brush off these jabs, but it was clear something had shifted. Mark started avoiding me, not just when we were out, but at home too. It stung more than I wanted to admit. Things got so bad that he even moved out of our bedroom, claiming he needed space to think. Then, one evening, he came home in one of these for a change. He said, his voice dripping with disdain. I looked up at him, hurt by his blunt words. Mark, you know how swamped I am with the business. After a long day, I just want to relax, not spend hours at the gym. His face twisted into a scowl. Relax? Is that what you call sitting around? Maybe if you took care of yourself, I wouldn't have to avoid bringing you along to meet clients. His words hit like a slap. Calling me lazy and fat, really? That's low, even for you. I shot back, my voice shaky with a mix of anger and humiliation. Mark just shrugged, his disdain apparent. If the shoe fits, he muttered, before turning to head to his room. That night, as I lay alone in our big, empty bed, his words echoed in my head. I had never felt so low, so unattractive. It wasn't just the business that was between us now, it was this growing, gnawing gap where respect used to live. His absences became more frequent. Nights where he didn't come home at all became common. Each time I questioned him, he'd snap at me. It's none of your business where I am. His coldness was slicing through me, day by day. The man I had married, who used to laugh and dream with me, was turning into a stranger, one who seemed to disdain every part of me. It was a regular Saturday evening. I'd made dinner, hoping maybe we could just have a peaceful meal for once, but the tension between us was like a thick cloud, impossible to ignore. I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. Mark, we need to talk. This isn't working anymore. I said, my voice steady, but my hands trembled slightly as I set down my fork. He looked up from his plate, his expression darkening. What are you talking about? I think we should get a divorce. We can split the business 50-50 and go our separate ways. I suggested, trying to keep my voice calm. Mark slammed his hand on the table, making the plates clatter. Divorce? Split the business? You must be out of your mind. I built this business. Everything we have is because of work. You're not taking half of it. His fury was like nothing I had seen before. He leaned in, his face twisted with anger. I will hire the best lawyers and take every last cent from you if I have to. You're not getting anything. I recoiled from his harshness, feeling a mixture of fear and shock. Mark, please. Don't you dare, please me, you scary, lazy fat woman. Don't bother me anymore and get out of my house, he yelled, his voice echoing off the walls. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I couldn't hold them back. I rushed to the bathroom to wash my face, trying to calm down. That's when I noticed Mark's phone on the counter. It buzzed with a new message, and without thinking, I picked it up. The message on the screen was from someone named Jesse, full of heart emojis. I love you so much, can't wait to see you again, it read. My heart pounded as I typed in his password, his birthday, easy to remember, and opened his messages. The texts I found were like daggers. Love notes, plans for a getaway, selfies of them together, and even a message thanking him for the new car he'd bought her. I felt sick to my stomach, not just from the betrayal, but from the sheer audacity of his deceit. But as I scrolled through more messages, something within me snapped. No longer was I just the heartbroken wife, I was now a woman scorned, fueled by a cold, calculating anger. I made copies of everything, photos, texts, receipts for the car. Anything that could help me in the coming storm. Then, carefully, I replaced his phone exactly where he'd left it. When I walked out of that bathroom, I was a different person. I didn't confront Mark. I didn't break down again. I simply went back to the table, cleared the dishes, and planned my next move in silence. He suspected nothing, still consumed by his own rage and arrogance. The very next day, I went to our office early, before anyone else could arrive. My mind was set, I needed to gather all the evidence before I could make my next move. I started with the financial documents and company accounts, meticulously checking each entry to piece together how Mark managed his deceit. It didn't take long before I found what I was looking for, a record of the car he purchased for his mistress. The amount and the date were all clearly listed, right there in our business expenditures. It was more than just a betrayal, it was embezzlement. Armed with copies of every incriminating document, I left the office feeling a mix of dread and determination. Sitting in the lawyer's office later that morning, I laid out everything. He's been unfaithful, and I have proof. Texts, pictures, even a receipt for a car he bought for his mistress. I said, handing over the copies I'd made. The lawyer looked over the documents, her expression unreadable. This is good. With the prenup, and this evidence, we have a strong case. He won't see what hit him. I nodded, the reality of the situation settling in. I want to keep the business. It's not just his, I've worked too hard to let it go. We'll make sure of it. She assured me, her confidence reassuring. Armed with legal advice, I returned home to face Mark. He was in the living room, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm coming his way. We need to talk, I said, standing at the entrance, my resolve firm. He looked up, annoyance flickering across his face. What now, Liv? I've seen the texts, Mark. I know about Jesse. I started flatly, watching his face change from annoyance to shock. What are you talking about? He stammered, putting down his phone. Don't bother denying it. I've got all the proof I need. And I've seen a lawyer. I continued, my voice cold. Mark got up, his demeanor shifting to one of anger. You went through my phone? You're invading my privacy now? This is beyond privacy, Mark. You cheated. You lied. And you threatened me. It's over. I said, cutting off his attempts to intimidate me. He scoffed, shaking his head. You think you can take the business from me? You're nothing without me. That's where you're wrong. I'm everything I need to be, and I have enough to prove your infidelity, which, thanks to our prenup, means I get the business. I shot back, my confidence growing with every word. Mark was silent for a moment, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. You won't get away with this. I already have, Mark. I'm 2 steps ahead. And I'm taking what I deserve. I said, feeling a strange mix of triumph and sadness. By the time our court date rolled around, I was ready. Mark tried to fight, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the judge finally made the ruling, it was almost surreal. By court order and according to our prenuptial agreement, half of the business owned by Mark was awarded to me. This decision not only solidified my control over the company we built together, but also handed me the reins to our entire family fortune. But I didn't stop there. Given the deceit and the emotional trauma Mark had caused, I demanded financial compensation. The judge, seeing the clear evidence of Mark's infidelity and financial misconduct, granted this too. As I stood outside the courthouse, the cool breeze felt like a fresh start, washing away the remnants of a battle hard fought and hard won. Back at the office, the atmosphere was palpably different. I walked through the doors not just as a co-owner, but as the CEO. The employees looked up, some with smiles, others with a cautious curiosity about what changes might come. But all I felt was a surge of determination to steer the ship right. Morning, everyone. I greeted them with a newfound confidence. Let's get to work. We've got a lot to do, and I'm here to make sure we succeed more than ever. The responses were mixed, but mostly positive. People were ready for a fresh start as much as I was. I spent the day going through plans, meeting with department heads, and laying out the new vision for the company. It was exhilarating to have full control, to make decisions based on what I believed was best for our future. Late in the afternoon, I sat down in my office, the sun casting long shadows across the floor. The phone rang. It was Mark. A part of me tensed up at the sound of his voice, but I reminded myself of the new reality. Olivia, I've been thinking. He started, his voice hesitant. I made a mistake, a huge one. I was wondering if, maybe you could consider taking me back. In any capacity, at the company? The audacity of his request took me aback, but I managed to keep my composure. Mark, you've got some nerve calling here. After everything, you really think I'd let you back into my life, into my company? I know it's a lot to ask, he stammered. But I'm out of options, Olivia. That sounds like a problem, Mark. This company, my company, is moving forward, not backward. You made your bed. Now you lie in it. I said firmly. Olivia, please. He tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. I think you've said enough, Mark. Goodbye. I cut him off, hanging up before he could say another word. It felt good to finally close that chapter, to assert my independence without a trace of doubt. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I rebranded the company, shifting our focus to innovation and community impact. We started initiatives that were close to my heart, like sponsoring health programs and investing in eco-friendly technologies. The community and the industry took notice. Sales were up, morale was high, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely proud of what I was building.